Karen McDougal describing the catch and kill process. We're back with Andrew, George, Vaughn, and Erica. So you were saying in the break, there's a lot that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, I mean, first, just for the things that we think we know, we're going to be hearing that in gruesome detail. And so I think there's just that. But
like what?
So just like exactly how the catch and kill worked and who was involved and what were the discussions and when it was going to happen and why they decided, for instance, one of the key pieces of evidence for the DA seems to be to refute the idea that he wanted to do this just to keep it from Melania, is Donald Trump saying, well, let's see if we can do this later because we may not have to pay if it's later. In other words, if I lose the election, who cares whether it comes out? Because I'm not doing this to keep it from my wife. I'm doing it to keep it from the electorate. But there's other things that were referred to on day one of this case, which feels like 2 weeks ago, but it was Monday, which is that the catch and kill was more than just catch and kill. It really was ironically, it was a fake news campaign. It was to keep information that was damaging to Donald Trump out. But I think we're going to hear a number of details, if the DA is correct in what he's proffering, about efforts to smear his opponents. So one tidbit is that Donald Trump was apparently, and we're going to hear evidence on this, getting headlines that would run in the National Enquirer beforehand for him to approve. So just like, I don't want to call this a major news outlet, but let's just say a media outlet in complete cahoots with a political campaign. I mean, this makes
and people laugh at this fact, but National Enquirer endorses, for the first time in its publication history, it endorses Donald Trump.
Right. I mean, just fast forward to the Dominion and Fox News. I mean, this is sort of a horrendous story. I mean, could you imagine, like, this is supposed to be some sort of impartial, balanced, media organization, and they are actually working to both keep information, to disseminate false information, and all on behalf of one candidate. So I think those kinds of details are going to make this seem much, much more salacious. And when you have somebody who's running on a sort of fake news campaign, this is going to be, this is your point a lot, which is it's all projection and nothing's new. This is Donald Trump at ground zero of fake news.
I mean, Ted Cruz's campaign, I was covering that in the heart of it. And I mean, essentially, after he worked his way through every single one of those candidates in March of 2023, I remember being in Wisconsin, in Dane, Wisconsin, when the National Enquirer dropped the allegations that were salacious, that he had had multiple affairs and cheated on his wife, Heidi Cruz, which they were completely unfounded, baseless. They were potentially defamatory, and they had implications. Those were the headlines that drove, frankly, we could go back in time now, right, and question our own headlines, right? But they drove from the New York Times to NBC News the discussion of the Republican race there in real time between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Days later, it then came out, the headline of that Ted Cruz's father had been engaged in the JFK assassination. That's what we were talking about on May 3rd, the day that Ted Cruz dropped out of the race. I mean, that could have changed history for all we know. And that is where, to your point here, we still don't have the full picture here. But what the prosecution suggested is that they want to bring this evidence forward here. And frankly, as somebody that covered that race so closely, and as an industry where we continually question how do we cover politics and campaigns, I think it's going to be paramount that we have that full understanding. I think that is what is going to be so intriguing, what the prosecution brings forward.
Hope Hicks is on the witness list. There were a lot of profiles done about Hope Hicks during the first campaign. In one of them, there's incredibly diminishing and sort of demeaning behavior. She's steaming his pants while he's wearing them. I mean, she was sort of a body person and a strategist. She's also in and out of meetings after rumors of this tape that ultimately Jim Comey tells Trump. I mean, she was involved in everything minuscule and massive. What does it mean for Trump that she's on the witness list?
Well, she has more credibility than anybody else. I mean, she was never charged with anything. She was with him all the time, pretty much like like the body guy. I mean, it's going to be quite remarkable to hear some of this testimony from her. We've never actually heard. I don't think we've ever heard her really say that much. Although maybe there was some excerpts of the January 6th committee hearing. But I mean, and then to go back to Pecker, the AMI guy, didn't he come to the White House? Isn't there evidence that he came to the White House in like February of 2017, and Donald Trump thanked him for helping with the campaign. Yeah. And that's going to be testimony. That's evidence that what he was doing.
So what does that line of questioning look like? He gets on the stand and the prosecutor asks him what?
I mean, you're going to have him going from, remember, this starts in 2015, and it's going to be all the way up until that Trump is actually president. And you're going to just have a timeline. The way you do this is like, you first, obviously, if it's Michael Cohen, it's going to be about what he pled guilty to. You sort of do all that. But with Pecker, it might start with, let's talk about the resolution and that you were essentially given immunity, but you had to come and be truthful. And then it's going to start from, how did you meet him? And what were the key conversations? And it's going to be like chapter and verse. And as he tells the story, you're then going to have all the documents that corroborate it. Now, a key way to do this, it's a little like a sort of slow interview, which is you have him tell the story, then you go to the documents and essentially have him retell the story through all of those documents so that the jury sees this is corroborated. Right. Including with David Pecker, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what is the cross going to be. This is not Michael Cohen, where Michael Cohen will have to admit that he committed perjury. Obviously, he's going to say he did it for Donald Trump. But there are just going to be so many witnesses, and one of the hard things for defense counsel is you have to pick your battles, because if you start going hammer and tongs at David Pecker, and then it turns out it's corroborated on with a document, or Hope Hicks is going to come in and say, yeah, that's what happened. You've lost so much credibility with the jury, and I suspect we're all going to get a lesson in like trial tactics. And just to put a shout out for Josh Steinglass, the lead prosecutor, is exceptional. I mean, really, they are putting their best foot forward.
What are you looking for in the Pecker testimony?
Well, Pecker is, of all of the people who are going to testify, I think probably the most critical person who has really never spoken publicly about this. And he, you were talking about the fake news, let's call it, campaign. He is absolutely essential to that. He was having the conversations directly with Donald Trump. He was having the conversations with his own internal people at the National Enquirer about when to publish and what to publish and when to publish it. And I think he is going to be, we've all been talking about Michael Cohen as sort of the star witness, but I think it's really David Pecker. He is going to be the narrator for this entire thing.
You look at how Donald Trump has talked about his, 88 felony charges. And there's a lot of bravado about the federal charges. He runs, as we've talked over and over again, he runs on the insurrection. He honors the insurrectionists. He describes them, the violent ones, as hostages. On Mar-a-Lago, he constantly talks to his supporters and conservative media, Sean Hannity and others. I was allowed to do it. They were personal records stuffed in there with my underwear in the boxes and whatnot. He doesn't ever brag about, other than on the Access Hollywood tape, but he doesn't brag about the alleged sex with Karen McDougal or the alleged sex with Stormy Daniels or the alleged hush money payments that were filtered through Michael Cohen that Rudy Giuliani went on Fox News and confessed to on live television. He doesn't talk about these facts, which is, in Trump terms, pretty telling.
He doesn't talk much about the facts or even the questions that are at stake, right? You don't hear him really talk about Stormy Daniels all that much. Over the years, he puts out a social media post every once in a while. Of course, there was the one in 2018 calling her horse face, right? Just sort of dehumanizing Stormy Daniels. But when it comes to the actual substance and the actual facts, let's be clear, he has denied the allegations from McDougal and from Stormy Daniels. At the same time, though, we haven't heard him talk about that August 2015 meeting at Trump Tower that he was engaging with Michael Cohen. He has not answered questions over why he was reimbursing Michael Cohen with monthly checks. He hasn't talked about...
Remind everyone what that meeting is.
The meeting in August of 2015 was allegedly at Trump Tower. Michael Cohen, as part of his plea agreement, he stated that this meeting happened with David Pecker, in which these conversations took place about the catch and kill scheme and potentially finding a way to make sure that these stories did not come out. These are questions that Donald Trump has not been been posed and not responded to. And when you go through this case here, right, he kind of, when he has been confronted with them, well, what did you think you were paying Michael Cohen for? He goes, well, he did a lot of work for me. And that is where, if he were to go and testify, as he suggested this last week, he would, number one, the testimony would come at the end of this trial. And if, in fact, this evidence that Andrew is suggesting could very well be there, I mean, it just is building a body of evidence that I, as a reporter, have a hard time knowing that we have attempted as reporters to ask him these questions and he has been slow to respond to. I have a hard time believing that he would willingly go and face cross-examination for what are tough questions that, frankly, me as a reporter, I would love to ask and have answers to, and I'm sure that the jury would as well.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.